Hey everybody, this is Allison with FlickDirect, and I am in the Living Room Theater here in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida, and I am speaking with Warren Pereira about Tiger 24. Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank
Yeah.
you. What does it mean to have your movie screening here?
It's great. I mean, I didn't imagine this film would get on the big screen because traditionally documentaries go straight to streaming or go nowhere. But I'm Living Room Theaters really liked it. Both the CEO and the owner are independent filmmakers originally, and they've been actually tracking this film for a while. And so when they wanted to do the theatrical, I said yes. You know.
Yeah, of course, why not?
Right.
And I think it deserves to be seen on a big screen.
I think so. I mean, for me, for a number of reasons. I mean, the traditional reasons, the footage is beautiful. It's the only footage of T24 in 4K in the wild. But also for me as a filmmaker, there's a sense of control because, you're here formerly, you made a decision to come here to watch this film. You're less likely to get on your cell phone or you can't stop it, And so for me, it's like people get to see it, continuously in a more focused manner. And also, the film was mixed on a stage in LA in 5.1 surround sound.
Oh, wow.
And so to be able to show it in surround sound this is probably one of the only times it'll be actually seen properly in 5.1 surround sound because people at home who have systems that are surround sound are usually not set up correctly. So, so I'm glad on all those levels,
Fantastic. And this film was 8 years filming?
I mean,
off?
it's 10 years in the making, but the first 3 years I was just going to India about once a year, twice a year to just collect footage and put it on a hard drive. So it wasn't the whole year, and I wasn't thinking about it the whole year. But then once he became this big icon for conservation with all the billboards and the court cases and the interviews, it became a much more serious, documentary with big implications and a lot of responsibility for me. So then I started thinking about it a lot, and I felt the weight of what I was doing. So then it got a little bit into me, and I had to get very involved.
I find it so interesting that the villagers, for the most part, don't want him back. Yet, throughout the country, there's activism going on to get him set free.
Yeah, I mean, the villagers immediately after the attack, the ones in the village where Sani was killed, we normal for them to not want this in their minds, a beast that killed, one of their neighbors or a father, and so absolutely. But then, if you ask them now, they have a different thought about it now, and they're actually much more tolerant of tigers than people who live in the cities, like some of the more vocal activists, and because they're living right by them. That's the actual tolerance. If you're sitting in a big city in Delhi or Mumbai, and you don't know what it's like to feel afraid of a tiger attacking you because it just can't happen anymore.
Yes. So the tigers, though, I find it interesting. They're separated by a wall, like from the people, but there's nothing to stop them from pretty much leaving and going attacking those villagers, but they don't. It's only when the villagers go into their space that they attack.
Well, so the wall is just representative.
Okay.
I mean, the tigers can jump that wall.
I was going to say that.
And most of Ranthambore is not walled, and that's on purpose. They are free-ranging animals. The tiger reserve is pretty big in terms of where it could be with corridors. Some tigers move outside the main national park into other areas of the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, like Kela Devi, et cetera, which actually tells the field director where potentially there's new tiger habitat. So that's by design, and there are some tigers who have gone to the villages and hung out there and killed people. That has happened.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not a perfect equation of people going in, and what the problem is that there's a small core area with no buffer and villages right outside. So it's a recipe for some problems to happen, but there's actually a lot less attacks and fatalities than one would think.
Yeah, especially with them roaming free like that.
Right.
You say in the beginning of this movie that this was not the film you had originally planned. Are you pleased with how it came out, how the direction turned? Would you still want to do what you had originally planned to do in a follow-up type film?
No, I'm really pleased the way it turned out because it made the project unique. It made the project special. It made the tiger that I was following, the star tiger,
Yeah.
an important icon for conservation. I actually just wouldn't have the money to compete with like say BBC or Netflix or Silverback, who have bigger budgets, amazing cinematographers with amazing lenses. And I would not be able to outcompete them on just shot after shot of beautiful shots. And I actually like the way the film turned. It has some pretty shots, but it has a grit to it.
Yes.
It has a really important, unique story. I'm not having to come up with a story. There's really a story, which very often in these nature documentaries you have to figure out. Well, we have all this footage. What can we say happened here?
Right.
You know. And would I want to go back and just make a pure nature documentary? No way, because just waiting in that Jeep every day to find this guy and then hope he does something is it's very, very trying for an independent filmmaker.
Were you nervous or scared at any point when he would show up? Did he
No.
become familiar with you at any point? Not that you're,
Yeah.
walking up to you and feeding him, but,
Right. No, I mean, getting attacked in a Jeep while on safari in a tiger reserve has happened, but it's a very rare occurrence. So I was never afraid. I mean, there was a couple of times when he came pretty close where you could sense, like, okay, there's a possibility, because it is an open Jeep.
Yeah.
But generally, you get the best photography when you keep about 20, 30 feet away, because, they're in sort of their space and you're in your space and you have time to move the camera and all, So when I tracked on foot, you have to get special permission from the forest department to do that. Then it's potentially more dangerous. But in Ranthambore, at least, we didn't run up into a tiger at that time,
All right. And how forthcoming were they with granting you that type of access?
Well,
We're going to get political
yeah,
here.
yeah. I mean, I have written permission to visit all the attack sites where T-24, killed people or allegedly killed people. And some of those areas, you just cannot go there on a Jeep because you'll destroy the habitat. So you have to go there on foot. So yeah, in that sense, I mean, the forest department understood what I was doing. And obviously, whenever you do this stuff, you have to go with a forest guard. You have to go with the permission. You have to talk to the deputy field officer. So there is a process. But generally speaking, I was not allowed to walk on foot. The permit says you should be in the Jeep. So it was exceptional times when I said, okay, I got to go understand how this attack happened. And so then for that specific area, I would get a forest guard and go with them, and they would, show me the way or just be there to say they were there,
Some of them are on film, right?
They all are.
Yeah.
And they all are. Yeah.
They're
Right.
movie stars now.
Right.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from the activists who are hoping to have T-24 released and put back in the wild?
I mean, they're in India, so they haven't seen this film.
Oh,
And
okay.
I wanted to be seen in India, so
Yeah.
eventually I'm going to try to get distribution in India.
Nice.
I don't know what they'll think. I would be curious to see, what they thought. I mean, I try to be really neutral, represent their side and represent the side of the department. And as far as him being freed back into the wild, I think at this point it's just not realistic. And I
Yeah.
think most of the activists understand that. It may be possible to put him in an even larger enclosure and introduce wild prey to be more representative of the wild. But that would require more medical management in case he got sick again. And so the logistics around that and potentially the politics around that may just not make it happen.
Yeah. I think, too, at this point, maybe they're thinking more of, let's keep the ones that are there, instead of having them, unfortunately, be captured and put into a sanctuary.
Yeah.
So there are some graphic scenes in this movie. How did you go about balancing? Because I think those moments are important, but they are graphic. So how did you balance that? Was there a lot that you left out? Was it, was there more you wanted to put into it?
there's way more. I mean, seeing so many mutilated, shots, body shots, and everything. There's a lot more. So the way I did that is I just kept enough to tell the story, and then I talked to the families, and I just said, "This is what I'm showing. What do you not want me to show?"
Oh.
And the consensus was, don't show the eyes. So if you notice, I blur out the eyes, or I put a black line on the eyes. Rampal Saini's son, who was the most famous attack, the fourth attack, he said just show whatever you want. So his father's shots, the eyes are not blurred, but I still kept it to a minimum because you get the point.
Right.
We don't need to go into, but yeah, for me, when I was editing, I had a cut which was horrific for a while. And, part of me as a filmmaker was like, yes, this is it. And this is the real deal. But then you're like, okay, well, might be a bit much for some people, so.
Yeah, you do have to find that balance because otherwise you have people in the audience who get turned off. And they don't want to see it. And then that word of mouth is, no, don't go see this. It's really way too over the top.
Or definitely go see it.
Yeah.
This is the only place you'll see this stuff.
This is a definitely go see it because you're right. You make that balance between the activists and the powers that be and, the forestry commission, whatever they are.
Right.
What's going to be next for you?
I've got a couple of projects going. I've got a very initial phases, a documentary on a boxing champion, Elvina White, who wants to become world champion.
Oh, nice.
So we've interviewed her a few times and taken some footage. I don't know where that's going to go because the whole process of financing, etc. And then I've got a narrative script that I'm initially starting to think about. Jarrett Rosenblatt, who was my script consultant on this one, is going to co-write that with me.
Oh.
But again, it's very intimidating to think about it because this project took so much out of me on every level. So for me to think of another one and having to go through that again is really daunting. But maybe because of this project, the next one could be easier.
I was going to say, why documentaries? Do you want to do the narrative type movies as well?
I always planned on being a narrative filmmaker. I didn't plan on doing documentaries. This just happened because I followed T24 and then he became this big deal.
Yeah.
So, but I do think the way the film is told, it's a narrative documentary.
Yeah.
I've used all the narrative filmmaking principles. All my editing is like a narrative film. It's incredibly score heavy, so which I think makes it cinematic.
Yes.
The color pass is bordering on cinema. We kept it real, but I think it's a pretty cinematic color pass. And we still, used all the traditional, filmmaking techniques in a narrative in a documentary. So I think my narrative filmmaking is represented.
Fantastic. I tend to agree with you. And I will say that I really enjoyed this film. Sometimes documentaries, they jump all over the place and they're a little hit or miss. And this, I think you did a phenomenal job representing from the beginning to where we are now in terms of tiger conservation and things like that. So thank you so much. I hope you have a huge success here with the film and great word of mouth. I will certainly contribute to that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just one more thing.
Oh.
If you like the film, there are a lot of people who worked on this besides me who are very good at what they do. I'm not going to name all of them, but the colorist, Luke Cale was amazing. The sound mixer, Aaron Levy. Krang, who did the score, Mel, who did the original theme. There's a bunch of my friends watched it over and over again. So, the reason, if you do think it's good, it's not just because of me. It's a lot of people who went into it, and obviously the people who gave me the interviews and their time. And so that's, in totality, why it turned out to be a good film, I think.
So a collaborative effort.
Yes,
always the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.